So it's amazing how the Elohim works, because the brother Raphael, him and I were on the same accord, because I had also wanted to speak about the religion of Islamism to the Moorish American. I wanted to speak about also the concept of spirituality, the concept of how an individual, a man, woman, if you will, how do you establish your worth? How do you determine your worth, your value? I've asked this question before. Every citizen that belongs to a nation, that belongs to a state, they have value. Every person, every individual, every human being, every man, woman, child, so on and so forth, they have a connection to the Most High. Anyone who denies that, they are ignorant, and I would even say arrogant to the truth. As a people that has a connection to the Most High, it is our responsibility to acknowledge that. Anytime that you acknowledge a higher form of being, you receive a blessing. Because you acknowledge that no man is an island unto himself. He is bound by cords to every living thing. And Allah is alive. Islam is, Allah is truly alive. And He is within each and every one of you. It's interesting that, when we talk about Islam, could you hand me my phone, please? If I look. It's very interesting when we talk about the concept of nationality, citizenship, statehood, and we are under the impression that all states, all nation states, all countries, what have you, do not have a national religion. So I want to, FYI, I want to share with you a few countries and their official religion, just in case you don't know. All right? So, for those that don't know, Islam is the state or the official religion of quite a few countries. Namely Morocco, of course, Afghanistan, Algeria, Bahrain, Bangladesh, Egypt, Iran, Iraq, Jordan, Kuwait, Libya, Malaysia, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, Russia, out of all places. Judaism is also, well, there is one country that also has Judaism as a state religion. Can anyone guess? It's only one. Israel. Russia comes in on a hard second, interestingly enough. The countries of Cambodia, Sri Lanka, and Thailand, their state religion is Buddhism. Nepal has Hinduism as their national religion. What does that mean? What is that country? What is the statement that they're making? That they have principles. Principles based on a divine creed. All right. Now, y'all have to pardon me today. I am going to cheat a little bit. I do have some notes with me, so I will promise to be as smooth in this process as possible. But I really wanted you all, and I encourage you all to take notes as well. So, Act 6 of our Divine Constitution and Bylaws states that all Moorish Americans must proclaim their nationality. And we are teaching our people their nationality and their divine creed. All right? Now I'm going to ask y'all a very difficult question. Maybe a little bit taxing for a couple of you all. Maybe a few of you. But I want you all to be as honest as possible. Raise your hand if you're Moorish American. Islam. So that means that Act 6, in part, is your charge. We have to teach our people their nationality. And what is their nationality?
Moorish American.
Moorish American. And their divine creed. And what is our divine creed? Our divine creed is Islamism. Now, me being a stickler for definitions and etymology and so on and so forth, I wanted to give you the definition of creed. Creed is very interesting. Creed is a very interesting word. In my Sunday school class, I encourage all members and guests to study the words of the prophet. And I mean to literally study the words of the prophet. And that entails that every word that you see, you at least want to get a definition and context. And not to sound too deep and not to be deep at all, but definitions and meanings and concepts is very important in this Moorish Divine and National Movement, because what we're doing is we're exercising our power to define. Because just as the brother Raphael said, Islamism abroad is considered to be a radical mindset, a radical philosophy that has a foundation in politics, but throughout the course of time and propaganda by our Western counterparts, it has become a word that is associated with radical acts of Islam. And that is not what we represent in this institution called the Moorish Science Temple of America. In our Divine and National Movement, our prophet orders us, instructs us to not say or do anything radical or agitating towards any other organization, make any negative assessments, I'm paraphrasing, towards the American flag. We are to be upstanding citizens. And we are to promote this religion and this divine creed of Islamism. All right? So, getting back to the definitions of creed, as our prophet says that we are to teach our people their divine creed. All right? So, creed comes from the Latin word credo. And in Latin, credo means I believe. Now, for those that are well versed in astrology, we should be more than familiar with that affirmation. Because I believe is the affirmation of what zodiac sign? Pisces. All right? And this is why it's important for us as Moorish Americans to study the doctrine of the Moorish Science Temple of America by way of the Moorish Holy Quran, because it says it states in chapter 23, verse 23, that verse 13, verse 13, that we ought to teach our children their religion. So if we are to teach them their religion, if we are to teach them the concept of a creed, a concept of belief, because if you believe in something, you perhaps think that this thing can manifest itself. And it also says in the Piscean text, also known as the Holy Bible, that one can move mountains with the faith of a mustard seed. Oh. And also in the definition of creed, it states that it goes even further back. It goes from the pre-Indo-European word, curd. Let me write this down. So we have the word creed that comes from the word, or the Latin word, credo, which means I believe. But which goes back even further to pre-Indo-European. Now, again, don't let these words fool you when you talk about pre-Indo-European, because pre-Indo-European actually means ancient Semitic culture, Ugaritic, Canaan, Moab. Pre-Indo-European, you have the word curd. And curd is interesting because curd means heart. From the word curd, you have the word cardiac, accord, quarry, credit. It states in our doctrine in the Quran questions, key 3. Well, let's start with key 1. Who made you?
Allah.
Key 2. Who is Allah?
Father of the universe.
Key 3. Can we see him?
No.
Key 4. Where is the nearest place we can meet him?
In the heart.
Are y'all with me, family?
Yes, sir.
So that's the etymology of the word. But then you go into the definition, and it reads a brief, authoritative formula of religious belief, a set of fundamental beliefs, a statement of base beliefs of a religion. That is your creed. So again, just as the brother Raphael has stated before, that when we say Islamism, we're not necessarily saying that you have to practice the faith of Muhammad. When was the last time, I'm calling some people out, how many people have your membership cards with you? When was the last time you read your membership card? Okay. So let's do this. Because the brother, hopefully I'm not bouncing too much, because the brother asked the question, Brother Raphael rather asked the question, can you be a Moorish American and not a Muslim? Is that possible? Can you be? Can I be a Moorish American and say that I'm not a Muslim or a Muslim? If you want to be technical about it. Let's find out. It reads, This is your nationality card. Your nationality and identification card for the Moorish Science Temple of America. And birthrights for the Moorish Americans, etc. And we're going to talk about that in a moment too. We're going to talk about birthrights. We honor all the divine prophets. Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, and Confucius. Alayhi salam. To all four. May the blessings of the God of our Father, Allah, be upon you that carry this card. I hereby declare that you are a Muslim under the divine laws of the Holy Quran of Mecca. Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. So again, the question that I asked you, family, is can you be a Moorish American and not a Muslim? The answer is emphatically no. But the Prophet also touches on a couple of other things too, because he mentions your birthright. He says, this is your nationality and identification card for the Moorish Science Temple of America and birthrights for the Moorish Americans, etc. He also says that you are a Muslim under the divine laws of the Holy Quran of Mecca. We can what's the word I'm looking for? We can determine that, or we can follow up with that with our authority in the back of our Quran question. Because it states that our power and authority derives from the great Quran of Muhammad. It also states that it's our responsibility to be missionaries. I was about to say mercenaries, pardon self. That we are to be missionaries and teach or to propagate the faith of Ali in America. Islam, family? So again, this is no fly-by-night organization, and these teachings are not for you to just open up on a Friday and on a Monday, and then after those 2 hours, you go back to the cares of the world like you don't have any instructions. We have instructions. We have quite a few of them. The question is, are you following those instructions? So let's get into this concept of birthright. There was a member of the Moorish Science Temple of America, Temple number 19, that posed a question, and the question was, and I'm paraphrasing, compare and contrast, or what is the difference between our birthright and the deen? Is there a difference? All right. So let's go into the concept of a birthright. Because our prophet states I can paraphrase. The prophet states in chapter 1 of our Moorish Holy Quran that we have lost our birthrights. And we have to regain our birthrights. All right? So again, what is considered our birthrights? One of our visitors has stated that our birthrights is the rights and the dominions over this land, over the plane of manifest. That is our birthright. But interestingly enough, it is not just our birthright, it's the birthright of each and every creator, or each and every creation of Allah. So each and every creation of Allah, each man has dominion. Y'all follow what I'm saying? So each and every man, each and every country, each and every nation, each and every group of people that has been created by Allah has rights and dominion over parts of the land. Then we have that same right. It's our responsibility to proclaim it, to take it back. But the question is, how do we reclaim it? We reclaim it by demonstrating our divine creed. Because you have to acknowledge your connection with the Most High.
Amen.
We have to acknowledge that connection with the great God Allah. And we have to submit to His will. Therein lies the issue. We have an issue with submitting. Rightfully so, because of our plight. There's a breakdown to who we consider to be our God, our great God. In the back, some of us in the back of our minds, we still have this notion that there's another man that is our God. So when we look within ourselves, some of us find it a little difficult to acknowledge the Allah, the Spirit of Allah within us. Because we're so busy trying to please another man that subconsciously we look to as our God. Therefore, we find ourselves trying to keep up with the Joneses, trying to appease and please this man. Some of us do it, again, subconsciously. I've stated this before. Those of you all that are Moorish Americans, you have to think about how long you've been a Moorish American. If you've been a Moorish American only for 5 years, you have, from that point that you became a Moorish American, all the way back to the time you were born, to reverse this form of European psychology. Or this form of white supremacy, as some may call it. Getting back to your birthright. Now, birthright is a combination of two words, birth and right. When we talk about birth, you're talking about the fact or the act of being born, to bring forth, to carry, give rise to. This is an interesting definition. The emergence of an individual from the body of its parent. Islam? Very interesting. The act or process of bringing forth from the womb. Islam? That is birth. So when you became a Moorish American, you were reborn. You were reborn and you were raised up. Islam? You came from a body which is this Moorish Divine and National Movement. The great God, the Father of the universe, Allah, that is the supreme being for us. Our Father on this plane of manifest is Noble Drew Ali. So when we talk about this concept of birth, we're talking about this concept of being an extension of a greater body. Being a member. These appendages are called members. Fingers, arms, hands, feet, head. We belong to a body. In order for a body to function properly, a body has to work together. And if the body is not working together, it's going to look pretty weird. So again, birthright, it consists of two words, birth and right. And the definitions that I'm giving you both the noun context and the verb context. The verb context is to give rise to, as far as birthright. The others are your nouns. We talk about right. Right. That which is morally right. Duty. Obligation. Also a rule of conduct. Law of the land. What someone deserves. A claim. What is due. That's also defined as justice. Getting out what you put in. Getting what is owed to you. Another definition, to straighten, to rule, to set up, to amend, to guide, to govern, to restore, to replace. Being in accordance, that's that word, that's relative to curd. To be in accordance with what is just, good, and proper. Islam family?
No.
Birthright is a right, a divine privilege, or possession to which a person is entitled to by birth. Islam? So again, to reiterate it, your birthright is that element which belongs to you by birth. When we talk about our estate, Prophet mentions to claim our lost estate. We're not just talking about land. We're talking about resources. We're talking about industry. We're talking about your mind. Because some of us need to reclaim our mind, which is our lost estate. Because it belongs to someone else. We don't think for ourselves. The Brother Raphael was going to read from chapter 35. And I told him that I help him out. I would like for you all to turn to page 64, your Moorish Holy Qurans, while we go over the holy instruction from the Prophet, religion. So this is a very interesting chapter, because this chapter is a part of Know Thyself in Thy Father God Allah. Because how are you to know who are you to be bound with? Or how are you to say that you're bound to the Most High if you don't even know who the Most High is? How are you to say that you are a spirit and a part of Allah if you don't know who Allah is? Islam? So it reads, verse 1. There is but one Allah, the author, the creator, the governor of the world, almighty, eternal, and incomprehensible. The Son is not Allah, though his noblest image. He enlighteneth the world with his brightness. His warmth giveth life to the products of the earth. Admire him as the creature, the instrument of Allah, but worship it not. All right? So again, it goes back to a verse from the Moorish Holy Quran where it talks about the soul of man. And so we have to, again, it's important that we read these things in context and that we understand the context of the readings. Because when we talk about describing or defining a thing that is a part of us, we have to be able to discern between what it is and what is its actions. So when we talk about the soul, and when we talk about the actions and when we talk about the thinking, the emotion, and so on and so forth, these are considered the actions. These are not the soul itself. It's the same thing with Allah. In this right here, it's saying that the Son itself is not Allah. It is an instrument of Allah. It's an extension of Allah. It is a tool of Allah. But it is not Allah himself. So worship him not. But admire the blessing of enlightenment and light that is given to you for you to progress on this plane to manifest. Islam? To the one who is supreme, most wise and beneficent, and to him alone belong worship, adoration, thanksgiving, and praise. Islam?
Islam.
For those who do practice the faith of Muhammad, in all scriptures and readings, you open up. It is customary for us to open up with Bismillahi ar-Rahmani ar-Rahim. That Ar-Rahman and the Ar-Rahim is saying the beneficent and the merciful, or the most beneficent and the most merciful. But it also gives reference to the womb, Ar-Rahim. So again, talking about the concept from which you were birthed from, this feminine attribute, for those that think that, you know, that Allah is just confined in the principles, in the male principles. It goes on in verse 4, who has stretched forth the heavens with his hands, who hath described with his finger the course of the stars, who setteth bounds to the ocean that cannot pass, saith unto the stormy winds, be still. This is describing Allah. This is describing who is Allah, according to our finite minds. Because no finite mind can circumscribe things that are infinite. Islam? But we're describing it. Our prophet Noble Ali is giving us the best description that he knows how, so that we may be able to make his will our will, so we can demonstrate the resurrection. 6, who shaketh the earth and the nations tremble, who dareth his lightnings and the wicked are dismayed, who calleth forth worlds by the words of his mouth, who smiteth with his arm, and they sink into nothing. O reverence the majesty of the omnipotent, and tempt not his anger, lest thou be destroyed. The providence of Allah, the dominion of Allah, is ever all his works. He ruleth and directeth with infinite wisdom. One of the 99 plus attributes of Allah, because they continuously talk about the wisdom of Allah, is Al-Haq, the truth. Al-Hakim, the wise, or the most wise, for himself. 10, he hath instituted laws for the government for the world, of the world. He hath wonderfully varied them in all beings, and each by his nature conformeth to his will. Let's stop right there. So why are we the only of Allah's creation that have a problem with conforming to his will? He gave us a mind, he gave us will, the ability to act and to think for ourselves. But once we get a mind of our own, we just think that we don't need Allah. He's there. He's there. I got a connection with him. But I don't need to be at one with him. I don't need to give praise and adoration to him. It's not necessary. What's the famous saying? Allah or God knows my heart. Only God can judge me. We're gonna get back to deen in a moment. This word deen. So 11, in the depth of his mind he revolveth all knowledge. The secrets of futurity lie open before him. He knows all. The thoughts of thy heart are naked to his view. He knoweth thy determination before they are made. Now this is very interesting, because if we pay attention to that concept, going back to the scriptures of the great Quran of Muhammad, it talks about how when Adam was created, or Adam was created, he asked all of the angels, Allah asked all of the angels to bow before Adam. And all bowed except for one. Halil, aka Iblis. And then they had some words. But ultimately, what I want you all to think about is Allah knew that all of this was going to transpire. Did you think he did not know there were going to be one that wanted to debase himself? That wanted to remove himself from the ideal? and be unto himself? See, contrary to popular belief, there's limited power to when you're working by yourself. And when you think that you're working by yourself and all the while you're accumulating resources, there's a word for that. It's called a leech. And if you're not reciprocating the gratitude and the blessings that you have received, some would call them useless eaters. We are not of those useless eaters. We are of those that respect the law. That if there's an issue with the law, then we make steps to correct it. We don't complain about it. We don't complain about it and do nothing. We may give a grievance, but after that grievance should be a solution. We should be in the business of creating solutions. So if you have a gripe and if you have a problem with something, the very next thing that you should be talking about or you should be thinking of is how can I alleviate this issue that I have? And if you're constantly only thinking about how this person is making you upset or making you angry or causing you a discord and you haven't made any steps for resolution, then you're a slave to this vicious cycle. You're going to continue to be a slave to this vicious cycle. Islam family? We're on verse 13. With respect to his prescience, there is nothing contingent. With respect to his providence, there is nothing accidental. Wonderful is he in all his ways. His counsels are inscrutable. The manner of his knowledge transcendeth thy conception. Pay therefore to his wisdom all honor and veneration, and bow down thyself in humble and submissive obedience to his supreme discretion. Again, we have a problem with submitting. It says in the Moorish Holy Quran, when the will of man and the will of Allah is one, resurrection is a fact. I cannot stress that enough. So we should be laboring each and every moment, each and every waking moment, thinking about how can I align my will with the will of Allah? How can I submit? A part of being a Muslim, a part of being a Muslim is to submit. Not submit to man, submit to the will of Allah. Submit to your duty and your responsibilities as a creation of Allah. Now the question is, do you know what your responsibilities are? Sometimes the breakdown is not knowing what your responsibilities are. The Prophet said a man needs a pattern in their lives. He needs instruction. That's why we have them. Now, I actually want to go into this concept of deen, of the deen. So, once again, the question is there a difference in your birthright and your deen? Are they one and the same? So again, we have, to reiterate, birthright is divine privilege or possession to which a person is entitled to by birth. It's divine privilege or possession. That's your birthright. Okay? Now we're going to talk about deen. All right? Deen, according to Hans Ware Arabic Dictionary, Deen is defined as religion, creed, faith. Now, what's interesting is that it also goes into a particular context. All right. It states that you have another derivative of deen, dunya. Or dana, pardon yourself. And that reads, a conviction to profess Islam, to adhere to one's customs. And also in ancient Semitic texts, it also means judgment, opinion, and attitude. Islam? But what I want us to focus on is that this idea, deen is your religion of faith, creed, or belief. But the context that we literally should be using it in is dana, having a conviction. To profess and adhere to Islam, or in our specific scenario, to Islamism, to the will of Allah. All right? Now, the judgment comes in. The judgment comes in by way of your actions. All right? What do I mean by that? Prophet said that we have lost our birthright. We have given up our birthright due to adhering to our lower selves, debasing ourselves. So we didn't profess or we didn't practice our customs. We didn't practice our Islamisms. So our judgment is what? Being removed from the blessings. Being removed from our estate. Being considered 3/5 human. Being considered undesirables. Because we're not professing that we have a connection with the Most High. We're not professing, we're not proclaiming, in addition to not teaching our divine creed, the fundamentals of our beliefs. How many of us practice the bare minimum, the fundamentals of your belief? You don't have to raise your hand. We need to think about that. To the bare minimum. How many in the workplace, if you have a 9 to 5, how many of your employers or your fellow employees know that you are a Muslim? How many know that they know that you're a Moorish American? There's another word that is relevant to religion. That word is millah. Now, in the Arabic language, there's an ideal of doing, and it has a relevance to a thing. So when we talk about the deen, or the deen of Allah, again, we're not just talking about, it's very specific. So I guess the word I should be using is that the words are very specific. So when we talk about the deen, it has to be, it's in reference to something. All right? So when we're talking about the deen, we're talking about the deen of Muhammad. All right? So we're talking about the conviction or professing to, the deen of Allah. The term millat is in reference to a religious community. Also the religious or religion creed or faith. A denomination, a group. It says in the Quran of Muhammad, it gives reference to Millat al-Ibrahim. So we as Moorish Americans, our power and authority comes from the great Quran of Muhammad, which states that we are a part of that Millat al-Ibrahim, the religion of the religion that Abraham has professed to. That same path. Y'all understand what I'm saying, family? Working with as far as time. 9:22. So when we talk about, and what's interesting is that also in that definition of millat, you have milli, which also references tiredness or irritation or vexation or annoyance. So it's saying that it would imply that this concept of religion as a collective, as a whole, as a family, it would denote that it's not going to be easy. It's going to be somewhat strenuous. It's going to be taxing. It's going to be tedious. But yet again, if you have that willpower, if you call on that saving power, then we will persevere. Islam? So the question is, our divine right or our birthright and the deen, is that similar? Is it the same? I would say that your birthright, or you would attain your birthright by adhering to the deen. Islam? That makes sense what I'm saying, family? So, with that being said, do we have any questions? Do you have any thoughts, sister?
Honestly and truly, get back to me like when I have some, I do.
Okay.
Give me like one minute if you have something that you want to.
Okay. Does any of the brothers have any questions while the sister is thinking about some things? Okay. So, what we have to determine for ourselves is very simple. You know, how are we going to genuinely promote this Moorish Divine International Movement? That's what it always comes back to. This is the proverbial hammer that drives home the truth. Because we have the tools. You know, we have the tools. We have instructions. Do we understand the instructions? Do we know how to use our tools? Do we have a clear conception of what we are called to do? You know, these are questions that we have to ask ourselves. All of us, raise your hand if you got a job. Whether you work for yourself or or you work for someone else. How many of us don't know what your job entails? Okay. So I'm presuming that each and every one of us still have that job. Because if we didn't know what we were doing, there wouldn't be that many hands that would be raised. So if you know what you have, what your responsibilities are at that job, again, Islam is a simple faith, and take those same concepts and apply it to learning more about this Moorish Divine and National movement. Y'all follow what I'm saying? You got that question? Okay. Shoot.
So as far as moving forward and, passing that, or exemplifying it more so beyond the Moorish American lifestyle or religion and so forth, is this something that we move as a unit aside from, wearing the turban outside and things like that? Is this something that we move as a unit, or do we all have the capability of going out saying like Christianity, where they want you to go and become disciples, and I forgot the term that they use, but go bring, what is it? No, it's another.
Evangelist.
There we go. Thank you. Being an evangelist, is that something that we're allowed to do?
Okay.
Solo.
Okay. We encourage you that if you just so happen to be by yourself and you're in conversation with someone, to talk about, the institution that you belong to and who you are and how it's helped your life. So the term that the Prophet used, as I said earlier, is missionary. So anytime that you're able to promote this movement by way of your actions, by way of even your thoughts, then people will have a chance to see that, and it may compel them to ask that question. As far as literally going out by yourself and passing out flyers, or promoting the Prophet by yourself, no, we do not encourage that. We encourage that if you had a set day like that you wanted to go to the West End, that you call up a sister, that you call you call up a brother to escort you on. We don't want any Moorish Americans to go out in the cares of the world, or in the dunya, if you will, and promote by themselves and propagate the faith by themselves. So no, again, if you were in conversation, in casual conversation, or even if you want to spark a conversation on social media or amongst friends and family, you're more than welcome to do so. But as far as on a Saturday, saying I'm gonna go out and go propagate this thing solo, no, that's not encouraged. Did I answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. Did you have a two-part? You had a two-part question. What was the other part?
No, I didn't.
You didn't? Okay. All right, just making sure. All right.
Yeah.
You have another question?
I probably will.
You want me to give you a minute?
No, it's okay.
Okay. All right. All right. Part of the measure was is because I wanted to expound on the question that you asked our Grand Governor last Holy Day, because there is, because of the climate of what's going on over in the so-called Middle East with Syria and so on and so forth, and going on in the propagation of our president, there's a stigma of using the word Islam and Muslim. So it is up to us to promote that we have a different take on Islam. The first thing being that we don't call it Islam. Our religion as Moorish Americans is what? I want her to answer. See if she was paying attention.
She got that one.
Is Islamism. All right? So Islamism, again, the only reason that we use the term Islamism is because our forefathers, as a collective, we use the language of Arabic to communicate. The misnomer is that we, being descendants of the inhabitants of Africa, is that we didn't have a central method of communication. The misnomer is that our ancestors were chilling in the lotus position, one with the world and the trees and so on and so forth, and these angry Muslims came through and ransacked our kingdoms. It's, some of our counterparts won't reveal that during the 7th century all the way up to the 16th century, that a good majority of the African rulers were practitioners of the Muslim faith. Now, whether it was by choice of an evolution of their form of spirituality or by way of mercantile, you had rulers that were practitioners of Islam, or practitioners of the Mohammedan faith, rather. All right? So if that was said, then they had to, again, there was a central language. Each and every tribe, they may have had similar or not so similar forms of communication. So just as we do in America, we have a central form of communication, and that is English. But when we get amongst our family and our friends, sometimes we have a tendency to talk not so English. But when we get into a point where we, into a place where we, where we're conducting business, we make sure that our language and our grammar is square, and that we're able to project what we're looking to do as far as trade. And that's very important, because if there's a breakdown in how we communicate and how we do business, then there's a problem. Go ahead.
So now I have 2 questions.
Okay.
So I guess I can do the first one now, and the second one was about last week as well.
Okay.
So the first question is the whole dominion. Dominion and peace seem foreign together to me. So can you just kind of explain what the dominion is that we have, personally, I guess?
You said dominion and peace?
Right, because we, what's that? There we go. It's our birthright is to have dominion over all things created. So if our religion is Islamism, Islamism is about peace. Peace and dominion over something don't.
I see what you're saying. Okay, I got you. All right, so when we say dominion, we're not talking about a form of tyranny or being a despot. We're talking about, first and foremost, having genuine ownership of places that we inhabit and that we reside. And dominion is not necessarily dealing with, it is dealing with control, but it's not in the sense of forceful control. All right? Going back again to our ancient forefathers and our foremothers, when we talk about how, they created aqueducts and gas lights and certain things of that nature, that was all in conjunction with nature. We weren't producing any technology that was contrary to nature, that was damaging nature. So everything that we created, we thought about how can it be and coherent with nature. That is the dominion. When you have dominion over your body, you have dominion over your household. That doesn't necessarily mean that you rule with an iron fist. Your idea with having dominion over your household is to have peace. So when you get home, you kick your shoes off and you want to watch your TV, watch your Dancing with the Stars, you will have that peace. So it's about how are you maneuvering everything that you have control over, so that it can coexist. So if we have I get to you, brother. So if we have a plot of land, and this was a good example. I wish the brother Jabbar was here. So when we go out to the land and we till the soil, we have to protect the crops that we're growing. So if there's an anthill that is there, we have to move it. You know, that doesn't mean that we take our foot and we kick it and we crush it and all that stuff. You know, we don't do that. We don't desire to move it, move it forcefully. But at the same time, we have these ants that are infringing on our crops. You know, so it would be the same thing. If an ant feels that another ant or whatever is infringing on their peace and on their well-being, they have the right to enforce that. They have the right to protect that.
And so it's literally Allah's creation, as in not just humans, but anything, as long as it's like, I think I'm a little bit confused.
Yeah.
Simply put, sis, and in the Passion text in the Bible, we forget that the first job that Allah had ordained Adam was to name each and every creature in creation. And so our prophet teaches us that we are descendants of Adam and Eve, right? So that is a part of our divine birthright, or our birthright, to do so. So when we think of dominion, it is our responsibility to conduct and manage the peacefulness within something. And again, just like the brother was saying, not to rule with an iron fist, but to conduct and manage peace amongst all of Allah's creation. We are the tippy top. We are the top of the food chain. You know, so that's really all that it is. But each and every part of man, you know, each and every man has that. So we not, you know, all Asiatics, they have dominion over their own space. And we have a vast space. That's why everywhere that the European went, there was a likeness of a culture. And he couldn't realize where everywhere he went, there was somebody that looked like us. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think my thing was just the connotation with dominion.
Yeah.
Was kind of skewed, at least for me.
Yeah.
So now that I have an understanding of at least what dominion means here,
Yeah.
because I was raised Christian, dominion meant something completely different.
I do.
And so, no, I definitely appreciate the definition of what dominion means here and how that relates to me. So.
Yeah. And even still, I encourage you, you know, to even look up the term dominion. You know, it's not it's unfortunate by way of European psychology that again you get that context of harsh rulership, to say the least. But you know, dominion is just control over, again, just like the brother said, you have dominion over your body. You have dominion over your household. You know, you have dominion over all that you own, that you survey. And you make sure that all that works in conjunction to bring about peace within yourself, right? That's all that it means. Islam, what was the second question?
I forgot it, but it's cool. It's fine.
Okay. All right. So with that, if there are not any other questions or add-ons or comments, all is well? Islam. What is our religion?
Islamism.
Islamism. Is that the new or the old-time religion?
Old-time religion.
Old-time religion. Islam family. So with that, I will lower the meeting with words from our prophet. Moore Science Temple of America, Noble Drew Ali founder, a warning from the prophet to be read in every meeting. I hereby inform all members that they must put an end to all radical and agitating speech while on their jobs, homes, or on the public streets. We advocate peace and not destruction. Stop trying out your cards with the Europeans, for it causes confusion. There has been much confusion caused by members trying out their cards. The cards are for your salvation. Failure of obeying my orders will be of severe consequence. We are for love, truth, peace, freedom, and when these principles are violated, justice must then take its course. Any member or group of members that seek to hold malicious feelings toward the temple or the prophet, or to violate the divine covenant of the Moorish movement, will receive their reward from Allah for their unjust deeds. All true Moors must obey the laws laid down to them by their prophet, and if they lose confidence in their prophet, give up your card and button, cease wearing your turban or fez, and return to the state where I, the prophet, found you. For this is a holy and divine movement founded by the Prophet, Noble Drew Ali. And if the Prophet is not right, the temple is not right. The Prophet is sending out a divine plea to all Moorish Americans that they may do their part in protecting their Prophet in the temple. This is an everlasting movement founded by the Prophet through the will of Allah to redeem his people from their sinful ways. Peace. Noble Drew Ali. Islam?
Islam.
Islam?
Islam.
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 I said everyone please rise and face the east, which is right in front of you. Once again, family, I thank you for coming out this evening, fellowshipping with us, so that we can continue to build on things that make us better citizens. I ask that all Moorish Americans please place your feet at a 45-degree angle. 2 fingers closed on the right, 5 fingers open on the left, invoking the presence of the sacred Elohim, who created everything that was, is, and evermore shall be. And to all of our visitors, please stand in a position that is comfortable for you in acknowledging our Creator. Please repeat after me. Islam?
Islam.
Allah.
Allah.
The Father of the universe.
Father of the universe.
Father of love.
Father of love.
Truth.
Truth.
Peace.
Peace.
Freedom.
Freedom.
And justice.
And justice.
Allah is my protector.
Allah is my protector.
My guide.
My guide.
And my salvation.
And my salvation.
By night.
By night.
And by day.
And by day.
Through his holy prophet.
Through his holy prophet.
Drew Ali.
Drew Ali.
Ameen.
Ameen.
Islam, family.